Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Luke Knight. He's the CEO of Central Copper Resources, a copper exploration and development company with significant high prospect land holding in Central Africa copper belts, with 2 assets in the DRC and the other in Zambia. And all 3 projects have significant high-grade resource potential. Luke has over 25 years experience in the industry, managing exploration and development projects in various countries, including Africa and South America. More recently, he became a director of AMED funds and focused on their investments in the middle commodity space across Africa, and was responsible for a portfolio monitoring before taking the helm of Central Copper. He's here today to give us an overview of his journey, talk about Central Copper, and developing their copper assets. And he's going to give us an overview of the company and what the future holds for them. So that's welcome, Luke, to the podcast. How you doing, Luke?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. Thanks for having me, Rob. It's very good to be on the podcast. I know you're busy at the moment, and thanks for giving me your time.
Appreciate your time as well. I know you're also busy. We're heading off to mining Daba and the 1-to-1 in Cape Town. So appreciate you taking the time to have a chat with me before you head off. So for those that don't know you, and I'm sure quite a lot of our audience will already know you, but for those that don't, just wondering you just tell us a little bit about your career, about your background before we start talking about Central Copper.
Yeah, no problem, Rob. I've been involved in the industry for sort of 25 years now, as you said. Although I'm talking to you from Perth in Western Australia at the moment, Africa is in my blood. I spent 18 years of my adult life living in South Africa in 2 different stints. I started out in the exploration and mining industry back in the late 90s. That was in projects in South Africa, involved in diamonds with a couple of entrepreneurs. Then I branched out a little bit to Sierra Leone. That was between coups, and that was a very exciting time. We had alluvial diamond projects in Sierra Leone. Cut my teeth up there. Moved over to Argentina, actually looking at gold projects for a period of time through an investment company. Moved back to South Africa, early 2000s, started a company called Platinum with 2 other mining entrepreneurs, Rudolph de Bruyn and David Twist, serial mining entrepreneurs, those 2 gentlemen. It was during a very interesting time in South Africa where the mineral rights were being handed back or taken back by the state. And there was a very interesting period there where the use it or lose it principle was in place. And there was a great opportunity in South Africa to pick up mineral rights that have been held by large South African companies, in some cases for up to 100 years. So it was quite an exciting process. We were focused on the platinum exploration industry. The price was working well with us at the time. Platinum, although an offshore company, invested in several projects in South Africa, and we raised a considerable amount of money over 5 or 6 years. 3 very good projects. One of them is now called Cerebello Platinum Mines. It was put into production. I actually was Chief Operating Officer of the local subsidiary, so I ran everything in country throughout the exploration project process and through the feasibility study. In 2006, I actually bought out by Lonmin Platinum, company that no longer exists, unfortunately, but quite a big player in the platinum industry back then. And I actually took a bit of time off, took about 6 or 7 years off, managed my own portfolio of mineral investments during that time. Of course, retirement at a young age is not everything it's set out to be. You've got to exercise your mind, and I was actually pulled back into the game in a full-time capacity in 2014. And that was with AMED Funds, initially out of their London office. AMED Funds is a private equity fund with about $500 million under management, specifically domiciled for investment in mineral and exploration projects in Africa. I was responsible for monitoring their portfolio of investments. There was about 12 to 14 of those investments over time. And I was there for about 8 years. I actually moved over to Central Copper Resources in 2021 and took over as CEO. That's a little bit of a history.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I wonder if, again, if you can tell us a little bit about Central Copper Resources, again, for those that don't know much about the company and how it was formed and how it sort of developed.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's not a lot of information in the public domain because we're private and most exploration companies are in the listed space. So, and Central Copper has been private since originally being formed in 2021. About $30 million has been invested in those projects, but probably a logical place to start is to take a step back. My largest shareholder is AMED Funds. They sit with about 45% of Central Copper Resources. Now, AMED Funds, as I said, is specifically domiciled for investment in mineral projects in Africa. Now, you wouldn't be much of a private equity fund with that mandate, not have copper in your portfolio. So we teed up with an exceptional exploration team, Ross McGowan and Tom Rogers, about 8 years ago with a specific mandate to search for copper projects in Africa. Now, if you're looking for copper projects in Africa, you want to be in elephant country, and elephant country for copper is Zambia and DRC in the Central African copper belts. So that was our focus. We probably looked at 200 projects throughout that time period. We selected 3 to invest in. AMED Funds invested in those projects independently. And as I said, spent about $30 million on them via those investments. I was the driving force to consolidate those assets into one company, and that's Central Copper Resources. And as I said, I took over as CEO of Central Copper in August 2021. So whilst I've only been the CEO for a couple of years, I was intimately involved in all 3 projects as the monitoring officer for AMED Funds since their inception and throughout the investment cycle. So a long history with all 3 projects.
Yeah. Before we talk about the projects, I just wonder if you can just tell us about some of the key management and the board.
Yeah, we've put quite a good team together. Obviously, we're an exploration company and you need to have a very good technical team. So we've got a technical advisory board. Dr. David Twist, a PhD geologist, is on that advisory board, founding partner of AMED Funds. We've also got Ross McGowan, also a PhD geologist, very well known in the Central Copper Belt. I think everybody knows him. And his partner, Ross McGowan, also a technical, Tom Rogers, also a technical advisor. Those 2 gentlemen actually won the PDAC award or shared the PDAC award in 2015 for the discovery of Ivanhoe's Kamoa-Kakula. So certainly very good track record in making good discoveries. My head of exploration is Lawrence Jordan, specialises in exploration in hard to get to areas. More recently worked for Alphamin in North Kivu. So certainly understands the DRC very well. He started with me last year. So we've also got Dion van der Mesch. Dion van der Mesch, people in the industry would know quite well, worked for Glencore, mining engineer by trade, a long history of assisting and putting mines into production and turning them around in Africa. Good examples are Mopani. He was the CEO of DRD Gold and also worked in Cobar for Glencore, turning around those copper operations in Australia. Dion's there to assist us with our feasibility study on our flagship project as well. So really good technical team. Our board of directors are shareholders representatives at this point in time. So Rudolph de Bruyn and David Twist, Dion van der Mesch, Ross McGowan, and also Jeremy Crozier, who represents Silvercorp, one of our shareholders. And of course, I'm the CEO and on the board of directors as well.
Yeah. Obviously, you've got 3 projects, 2 in the DRC. So let's have a chat about the projects in the DRC, and obviously start with your flagship project, West Congolian project, which wondering if you could just tell us what the current status of that project is and what the plans are moving forward.
Yeah, no problem. It's a very exciting project for us. It's not in the traditional copper belt. So it's actually southwest of Kinshasa in a copper belt. We call it the West Congolian copper belt, actually. So it's not the traditional copper belt that you've got in Zambia and southern DRC. The project itself was first discovered by the Belgians back in the 1950s. They actually drilled it, did 15,000 meters of drilling, and it was a high-grade copper deposit on a sedimentary hosted breccia zone. We discovered that information. There was a local partner who had that deposit, and we entered into an option and earning agreement with them. We exercised that option over that deposit in 2017, and we're now in a joint venture with our local partner over that project area. Now, it's quite interesting because the existing deposit that we've got, we've done, 25,000 metres of drilling. So we understand the geology very well. There's over 185 boreholes into the deposit. It's a high-grade deposit. So we've got about 11.8 million tonnes and an average grade of 3.1% copper. It's between about 100 and sort of 200 metres under the ground on average. So whilst we can't open pit it, we'll be shallow underground mining via at it. What's very intriguing about our deposit at Mbamba Kalenda is the exceptional high-grade core. So on that triple junction fault structure, about 40% of the deposit is in excess of 18% copper. So that's sort of an near unheard of sort of copper grade. So quite nice for us. We did complete a PFS over that project area in 2020, and I call it a desktop PFS because it was more done for us internally to get an understanding the efficacy of mining that existing deposit. The financial metrics were really good. We were very happy with what we got during that PFS. What was even more interesting to us is because of that exceptional high-grade core, we've actually got the opportunity there of using sorting mechanisms like XRF or XRT to produce a direct shipping ore. Now, most of those sorting mechanisms are used to upgrade your ore before you process, and our PFS was done with a traditional mill and float circuit in it. So it ended up with $227 million of CapEx. And although it had good financial returns, if you didn't have to put a mill and float plant in and you could produce a direct shipping ore, you could reduce your CapEx considerably. You also fast track your lead time to production and cash flow. And we're looking at that at the moment over that existing deposit. So we've got quite a lot of work planned there over the next sort of 6 to 12 months where we'll be doing metallurgical drilling, getting a sample so that we can run it through the XRF and XRT sorting machines. Although we have already undertook work with a consultancy in South Africa, Rados. They specialise in XRF scanning your core, but they also provide the XRF sorting machines as well. And what we've discovered through that process, although they're not physically validated at this point in time, is we can produce a direct shipping ore in excess of 20% copper. We can recover about 78% of our copper. The other 22% goes to a stockpile, sits at surface already mined, and that stockpile sitting at about 2.1% copper. So quite exciting for us. So we're endeavouring to complete the metallurgical, geotechnical and hydrological test work for mining over that deposit and looking at fast tracking that to production and cash flow over the next 18 months. Now, that's one half of the Western Congolian project. What we've actually got there is two halves, if you could imagine. And then we've got an exploration side to that project as well. The mineralisation is structurally determined via this fault structure. And I was actually out on site in 2016 and a crusty old Congolese geologist told me that fault structure ran for another 85 k's. Well, that was interesting to me. So I told them to stop drilling and go get me the rest. Now, it took us a long time to put that portfolio together. We flew airborne geophysics in 2017, and we picked up the fault structure for, lo and behold, 85 kilometres of strike. And then we secured all of those permits. So we've got an existing exploitation right over our flagship deposit that was awarded in 2022. And then we've got 12 exploration rights following the fault structure that determines our mineralisation for 85 kilometres of strike. So a very exciting exploration area as well. There's a lot of showings throughout that area historically for copper, lead and vanadium as well, actually. As an example, about 80 kilometres away from the existing deposit on the same fault structure is a high-grade lead and vanadium deposit. It was actually drilled, it was mined, adits were put in back in the 1950s again. So a long time ago, about 2,500 tonnes of metal was mined, and it had a vanadium grade between 4 and 7%. Now, I've never heard of 4 to 7% vanadium. So quite exciting for us. We know where it's located, and as part of our next exploration programs, we'll send out some drill rigs and we'll start drilling that out as well. So very exciting and a regional exploration play underpinned by the value of that existing deposit that we're fast tracking to production.
Let's move on to your second project, Kayeye. It's certainly obviously in an interesting place and location, being adjacent to Ivanhoe's Kamoa-Kakula. Just wondering if you just tell us a little bit more about that particular project.
Yeah, very, very interesting place. I think everybody has heard Robert Friedland get up at conferences and talk about the Western Foreland. So the Kayeye Project is located in the Western Foreland. It is adjacent to Ivanhoe's Kamoa-Kakula, as in the mining lease area. They also have a very extensive exploration area outside of their mining lease area. I think we're pretty much surrounded about 80% by their exploration areas as well. Obviously, been a lot of announcements recently of new discoveries by Ivanhoe, which is great news. And I know Robert's got up a few times and he's talked about there being the potential for 10 to 12 more Kamoa-Kakulas out in that area. That'd be fantastic. If there was, I'd be happy with just one more, obviously. As I mentioned before, Ross McGowan and Tom Rogers shared the PDAC Award for discovery of Ivanhoe's Kamoa-Kakula, so they do understand the geology very well. They were involved in extensive drilling programs out there. So we've got the right team to try and develop this project. We've spent about $5 million on exploration to date, and whilst we haven't had a mineralised intersection on the deposit, we have proved geological continuity with Kamoa-Kakula, which is great. It's a large lease area, so it does need to be hit with a big stick. Look, we've done soil geochem out there. We've done, 8,000 meters of drilling. We've flown airborne geophysics. Late last year, we completed an AMT survey over the property as well. That completed in December. We used South African contractors for that. So unfortunately, they all went off on holidays. We'll get the results in the next couple of weeks, but that looks quite exciting. And what that will do for us is help us with our next drilling program. So we've got two targets on the property. One we call Kayeye North, which is adjacent to Kamoa-Kakula. We have drilled quite a few holes there in the past, and we've got a particular target there, which is quite exciting for us. Stratigraphy matches what we see in press releases for Kamoa-Kakula. And we did collar that hole, which deviated, unfortunately, into showings of lead-zinc mineralisation, which is quite exciting for us because Kamoa-Kakula, the lead and the zinc is first, and then underneath that, with the way the fluids deposit, you then got the copper. So we'll twin that hole, look to drill it straight this time, and hopefully look for our first discovery on that project in the next dry season in DRC. Then we've got the southern section of the license, which we call the Labudi Trend. It's actually on the domain boundary. We're looking for a target called the Redox Zone, where we hope we'd have some nice trapped copper mineralisation down there. We'll probably do some infill lines on AMT once we review those results, but we'll look at initial drilling out in that region as well in the next dry season. So yeah, very exciting project for us. Certainly the full... it's what you call blue sky in the mining industry. I don't think you get any better blue sky than that. If we do have a discovery, it will obviously propel Central Copper Resources and our value quite dramatically. So very exciting project for us, where we hope to have that first discovery in the course of the year.
Yeah. Before we talk about your projects in Zambia, I suppose I just want to cover the DRC. And I suppose those that are listening out there that may have never worked in Africa or not even worked in the DRC, I just wonder if you just give us an overview of what it is like mining in the DRC. Obviously, there's difficulties, there's challenges. I just wonder what your experience and your thoughts are around mining in the DRC with obviously local stakeholders, governance, and obviously the government, the mining legislation, etc. I just wonder what your thoughts are, having obviously been working in the country for some years.
Yeah, I think it can be a scary place for a lot of people because they don't have the level of experience I and my team have working in the DRC. I think for people that have worked there for many years, you get to understand the place. It's got its own idiosyncrasies. It's very important in the DRC that you abide by regulations, government regulations in respect to your mining rights, your exploration rights. You lodge your reporting in good time, and those sorts of things. You dot the I's and cross the T's. I think that's very important. I think for a lot of people, there's a misconception when you invest in Africa that you can cut corners. And in reality, the converse is actually true. You can't afford to cut corners. In Africa, if you cut corners, it'll come and bite you later. So for us, we run a very tight ship. We abide by all the regulations. We're very experienced in working in the DRC, and we've had limited problems, throughout the last few years in the DRC. All of our rights have been awarded in good measure. They're all in good standing. So for us, whilst it can be a challenging environment to operate in, we've had limited problems. And I think that's just the experience of both myself and the team in working in those sorts of domiciles in Africa. Obviously, logistics can be an issue. As we all know, Africa is not as developed as other places. But that's something that you need to understand, and nobody's going to build that infrastructure for you. It's part of the process when you want to develop those minerals in places like Africa. So for us in the DRC, particularly our flagship project, we're actually blessed with the logistical advantages, which is fantastic. I'm southwest of Kinshasa. Project area straddles the RM1 highway, which is the single best road in the country between Kinshasa and the only port, the Matadi River port, which is a modern containerized port. So for us, we don't have those logistical challenges, but that's something that you would have in most other places in the DRC, and that's something you've got to be aware of. Of course, that's mitigated by the high-grade nature of a lot of the deposits that you have in the DRC. If the grade is high, you can usually, sort out most of the issues that you might have, including with logistics and infrastructure challenges. So for us, it was very pleasing recently. President Tshisekedi has been re-elected. Looked to be a bit of a landslide, about 72%. Obviously, the previous election was a lot closer. That's good for us, and it's good for foreign investment because you've got stability. He'll have another 5-year term, and he's looking at developing the mineral industry in DRC, which is important. So what we're looking for from the DRC is consistency in regulation. I think that's very important. It's probably worth noting they have just increased the lease fees on short notice in December last year, and we'd hope that would be the last increase because for any mining company or exploration company, you want consistency and regulation. That's what's important. You don't want the goalpost moved on a regular basis. DRC introduced a new mining act in 2018, and we'd like to see that continue. And the terms for long-term investment stay the same. So that's what's important to us as investors moving forward, I guess, developing projects in DRC.
Yeah. If a mining company was looking to go into the DRC, is there any advice that you would give them that may be different to going invested in other parts of Africa?
Yeah, look, you've got to tread carefully, and you've got to understand the local conditions. Okay, it's very difficult to just go in and have a meeting and start looking for a project. A good solid local partner would be important. And they'll assist you with the local idiosyncrasies that you have in the DRC. So I think that's probably an initial first piece of advice I'd get. You need to put a good team together. You need to put a team together that's got experience in working in those domiciles. Otherwise, everything is going to cost you much more. That goes without saying. And everybody says it's very expensive to work in the DRC. Well, it is if you throw your money around and you don't put the right team together. It's not a wealthy country, so people are there, and there are people that will take advantage of people that are naive when they move into the country. So getting a good local partner is probably the best bet. The easiest thing would be to invest in companies that already have good teams and have good projects like CCR. That would be my advice. Invest in a company like CCR that's already done the hard yards. Put the team together and have good projects and that are looking at developing them.
So let's move on to the projects in Zambia, and I just wondered what the current environment is like with your project there, and what's your target?
Yeah, we're looking for a near-surface oxide resource there, actually, and I'm going to give full disclosure here. When you've got 2 projects in the DRC, you're looking for something to diversify risk for investors out of the DRC, and Ross McGowan and Tom Rogers were interested in this project area for a while, but it's grassroots. It's in a known base metal zone. First Quantum's busy there at the moment. The Arc Mineral Lango JV's in the area. Quite a few people are active. So it was a very interesting area for us, but it was grassroots exploration. Interestingly enough, we jumped in there, looking for a near-surface oxide resource, something small that we can get into production as quickly as possible. That was the principle of why we secured the project area. We jumped in and did a soil geochem survey in 2021, and it's not just a diversification of risk anymore. It's actually a very exciting project. We've got about 4 anomalies on the project area. They're showing about 20 times background for copper, and that's exactly what you want when you're looking for a near-surface oxide resource. So got quite excited by that. There's a lot of excitement in the project from a JV perspective as well. Quite a few of the majors have approached me to JV that. It's in Zambia. They like the project. They like the size of the project area. So an exciting project. I'm not interested in JVing it because from a risk versus return perspective, we need to do the next round of work ourselves. We've got some very good soil geochem anomalies. We did an airborne gravity and aeromagnetic survey in December last year. We completed that. What we're looking at doing there is matching geophysical anomalies with the near surface or the soil geochem anomalies, to help input into a drilling program, again, looking for first discovery in the next dry season. So we'll either use a combination of air core drilling followed by RC and diamond drilling, or we might go straight to RC drilling once we've reviewed that geophysics. So again, very exciting project. We've done the early exploration, the geophysics, the soil geochem, and now it's time to drill. And we've certainly got targets to drill at the moment. So it's past those first two steps with flying colours, and now we'll be looking for a discovery. Interestingly enough, just next door to our project area is the Chufumpa mine, which is a high-grade near-surface oxide resource held by private hands. It's sitting at about 4.17% copper. So that's what we're looking for. That's what we hope to find, and hopefully we find that this year.
I know, obviously, you're looking to obviously raising capital at the moment. How much are you sort of after, and what are you going to use that capital for?
Yeah, probably need to take it back step again, because we were actually looking at listing CCR. Just to explain, we were looking at listing CCR on the ASX earlier this year. We started that process in late 2022 when the ASX was the only exchange that had any life in it from the traditional exploration and mining exchanges. There was quite a few listings. Money was being raised. Copper was certainly a popular commodity on the ASX. As we advanced that process in early 2023, market conditions just deteriorated rapidly to quite a degree. We had those bank failures as well. That was probably the death knell into the exploration funding for the ASX. So we actually pulled the plug on that listing process in April, May this year. We were scheduled to list in June. We pulled the plug, decided it wasn't the right time to be in the listed market space, given market conditions were so poor. The reason I mention this is we actually got all of our projects in a position where we would have a new discovery on either Kayeye or Lunga, finishing a feasibility study on our flagship project, and a new discovery of high-grade lead and vanadium out at Senge. The reason why everything's happening out of the next fundraising is we wanted good news flow post-listing. We felt we'd get better value out of the market than negotiating with our brokers prior, on pre-raising market cap. So everything's sort of ready to go. We're looking at raising, while staying private now. It's a significant raising for a private exploration company. We're looking at up to $23 million, at basically a pre-money value of $50 million. And that'll give incoming shareholders a significant interest in the company of around 34-35%. We're happy to cop that dilution at the moment, because with the work programs we've got planned, we expect to have a significant uplift in value over the next 12 months post-raising that cap. That's what we're after at the moment. I've been working pretty hard on that over the last 6 to 12 months. 6 months in particular, once we pulled the listing process. It's been a little bit frustrating, Rob, to say the least, because most investors are taking a wait-and-see approach. Nobody knows where the global economy is going to go. A lot of people are expecting a recession. And of course, if you have a recession, you'd like to buy in at the bottom of the market. So a lot of people are holding on to their capital. They're not investing in exploration or development at the moment. So to be honest, 2023 was a horrible year for raising capital in the exploration scene. Probably the worst year I've seen in 25 years, unfortunately. So we hope to have much better 2024. We've got significant interest in our raising process, and we hope to finalise something in the next couple of months.
Yeah, obviously, I've had quite a few junior miners on the podcast, and most of them are obviously struggling to raise finance for their projects. How do you see the market in 2024? Do you see conditions improving? Obviously, for people to raise capital for exploration or development projects, how do you see it? Obviously, mentioned 2023 was a bad year and probably the worst that you've seen in 25 years. Are we at the bottom? Do you see things picking up in 2024 and beyond?
Look, I'd like to think it's got to improve. But there's a bit of a disconnect at the moment. I'm in copper. Everybody's a bull. There's no bears. Everybody's talking about the future of copper and the green revolution and the transition. There's quite a few analysts that are, expecting a 15,000 a tonne copper price, in 12 to 18 months' time. Pop that into my PFS, and the results are amazing. So you're sitting there with a pre-money value of 50 million, and you think it must be easy to raise capital, surely. Look, the market's got to improve. I think it will improve. I mean, there's always geopolitical headwinds. You've seen what happened, more recently with Israel, the Ukraine war as well. These things don't help. It leads to uncertainty for investors. So we hope to have a bit of stability in 2024. Who knows? Maybe the Chinese will stimulate their economy a little bit. That'd certainly help all of us in the mineral and exploration game, and that should relate to high metal prices. And there's been a lot of rhetoric. There's been a lot of talk about all of these transition and battery metals, and that rhetoric has not been coalescing into investment in exploration, and that's where you're going to get those projects into the future. I'm seeing a slight difference. I think things are changing a little bit. I think people are more interested in investing now, and I think you can't hold on to your money forever. People have to invest their capital, and I think that'll start happening in 2024. And I think good projects will be funded. We're looking for a better year. We've got good projects, so our desire is to have them funded so that we can add value for our shareholders. But I'm expecting an improved market throughout 2024. My fingers are crossed.
Yeah, and I think everyone else in the industry and everyone listening to this as well. And as we were speaking off air, it's probably about time things will start to change. Now, how quickly that is, who knows? But obviously, we will see as the year progresses. You're going to be in Cape Town at the 1-to-1 and Mining Indaba conferences. And at the time of this recording, is going to be next week.
Good timing.
Good timing. How would you see the settlement of Cape Town? Obviously, there's probably 7, 8, 9, 10,000 people are going to be in Cape Town, all looking maybe looking for money, looking for projects, etc. How do you feel these conferences are going to go? And obviously, if you look at one of the most recent big conferences out in Saudi Arabia, there was a lot of commitment from the governments with there. And I'm thinking if the same sort of news flow will go out from the couple of the big conferences coming up, then it may look like the industry is slowly picking itself off the bottom. What are your thoughts about how Cape Town's going to go?
Well, Cape Town's always fantastic, Rob. And you forgot another thing. People are looking for warm weather because all you poor guys up in the Northern Hemisphere are freezing at the moment, and you can't beat Cape Town, can you?
No.
I love the city. I actually lived in Cape Town, for 6 years, from 2016 to 22. I actually moved back to Perth last year. So, and look, the Mining Indaba is in my mind the best mining conference on earth. And if you want to invest in Africa, there's no better place to be. There's always a lot of activity. The 1-to-1 conference, I think my agenda, 24 meetings filled up in 24 hours. And then you've got to try and push the rest over throughout Mining Indaba. So there's certainly a lot of interest. I think everybody heads to Cape Town at the beginning of the year with a bit of a spring in their step, hoping this year is going to be the turnaround year. We'd hope it would be, but look, there's always a lot of deals that are done in Indaba. There's investments I think will be announced. You've got a few large investors that are looking for projects at the moment, and as you pointed out with governments, there's governments like Saudi Arabia and other governments as well through their sovereign wealth funds that have announced that they're looking for critical minerals. And no doubt they're all sending teams down to Cape Town, and they're on the hunt for investment, and they've got the money to invest. So I think some deals will be announced. I think that goes without saying. And I think it will give a bit of impetus, to the industry moving forward throughout the year. So I'm hoping for a very busy, intense 1-to-1 and Mining Indaba, and finalising my own investment as well. But I wish the best to all of the other companies that are there to raise capital as well, and hope that the year's going to be a better one than last year. I mean, some of those junior mining companies. I was at IMARC last year. I was at Mines and Money as well, and I always do the rounds. Have a look at the other companies for potential investment, both for AMED funds and, as competitors to CCR as well. And there's some good projects out there. There's some good projects in the listed market space with, their penny stocks now. It's a very difficult environment, and yet they can't raise funding. So, I hope that turns around for those companies and they get the reward they deserve by funding and advancing their projects. And let's hope it all starts in Cape Town, over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, indeed.
I just wondered if you can sort of summarise the value proposition of Central Copper Resources for potential investors.
Yeah, I think Central Copper Resources value that we're pitching at the moment, a pre-money value of 50 million, is underpinned by the existing high-grade copper deposit we've got at Mbamba-Kalenda. There's 500,000 tonnes of contained copper at an average grade of 3.12%. So that underpins the value for any prospective investor. But then, to add to that, we've got a very exciting exploration pipeline of projects that can follow up through the development curve. So value underpinned by an asset already. And then you've got that upside potential of the west of the Western Congolian belt, the Senga project with high-grade lead and vanadium, the Kayeye project, which is, epitomizes blue sky potential. And then, of course, Lunga as well, where we could have a near-surface oxide resource. So it's a really good mix of projects. It took us some time to put those together, and form CCR. Our value proposition should improve dramatically post-raising this capital and the work programs that we've got planned over the next 12 to 18 months. So good space to be, obviously, copper. As I said before, everybody's a bull and there's no bears. So it's the right place. And if the price works for us as well as we're developing those projects, well, we should get a very good return for both our existing shareholders and incoming investors in our next funding round.
And lastly, what's the outlook for the next sort of 6 to 12 months for the remainder of this year?
Yeah, we want to finalise the funding that we're endeavouring to raise at the moment. We've done all of the preliminary work. We've planned our work programs. We've done the preliminary planning at our work sites, got our quotes in. We're ready to roll, so we raise the money. We implement the drilling program. So particularly busy time during the dry season in the DRC, where we'll be drilling on all 3 projects. But the money we're raising at the moment will be predominantly put into the ground and looking at advancing our projects and either having first discovery or finishing our feasibility study to fast track production on the flagship project. So very exciting year for us post raising the money. And people will hear a lot about us moving forward as we develop our projects.
Certainly. Luke, really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us an update on Central Resources. Central Copper Resources, sorry. Really appreciate your time. Perhaps you can come on next year and give us an update on the 3 projects.
Would love to. Should be a very exciting day come next year, mate. That'd be great.
Yeah, certainly. And anyone listening that is obviously going to be in Cape Town, obviously reach out to Luke if he's got any time in his diary left to have a meeting. Obviously reach out to him. And Luke, how can people follow Central Copper Resources, and what sort of social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, I must admit I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to social media. We do have a LinkedIn page, we've got Twitter, and we've got our website as well, all of which will be getting updated post mining Indaba, so they can follow us along there. But people are welcome to email me directly as well. I've got no issue with that. So I'm generally always available, so they can reach out to me directly as well via my email address. Yeah,
no worries. We'll include that in the show notes accompanying this, so for easy access, so people can reach out to you as well. So, all the best for 2024. Hope you have a good Indaba and 1-to-1, and all the best for the remainder of the year.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Rob, and thanks again for having me. It was a pleasure.
No, appreciate your time as well. Thank you, audience, for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. We've obviously share this up with people in our industry, but also people outside of industry. So anyone in Africa listening to this, please just share this far and wide. We want to obviously make people aware of the mining industry, not just for people educating the people within our mining industry, but people outside of our mining industry. That's the only way that we're going to, I suppose, make more and more people understand what mining's all about by sharing these episodes to outside of others outside of our industry. So really appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.